Hi everyone, welcome to English today. Before we begin today's lesson, what I'd like you to do is just a little bit of a recap from yesterday. Can you order these three pictures from the story? What came first, what happened next, and what happened at the end? Pause the video here, have a go at that now. Okay, so let's see if you got those pictures in the correct order. So we had Hamish in the basket going out to protect the lunch, which he didn't do a very good job of. We had Mr. Grinlin at the end enjoying his very delicious lunch. And then we had Mr. Grinlin, and I never noticed before, but Hamish is sleeping on top of him. Isn't that cute? Mr. Grinlin lying in bed while the ships are tooting him to say, "Your light is shining brightly." Let's see if you got those in the correct order. Brilliant. So we should have Mr. Grinlin in bed first, then Hamish in the basket, then Mr. Grinlin enjoying his lunch at the end. Did you get that? Brilliant stuff. Okay, so today we're going to order the story again. So that's going to be our learning objective. But we're going to do a little bit different this time. We're going to make sure that we recall key parts of the story. And I realise, I'm so sorry, I forgot to put phrases, not pictures, because there is no picture today. We are looking at phrases today. So I'm going to very quickly read the story one more time to you. And this time we're going to be ordering phrases from the story. Once there was a lighthouse keeper called Mr. Grinlin. At night time, he lived in a small white cottage perched high on the cliffs, and in the daytime, he rowed out to the lighthouse on the rocks to clean and polish the light. Mr. Grinlin was the most industrious lighthouse keeper. Come rain or shine, he tended to his light. Sometimes at night, Mr. Grinlin lay sleeping in his warm bed, and the ships would toot him to tell him that his light was shining brightly and clearly out to sea. Each morning, while Mr. Grinlin polished the light, Mrs. Grinlin worked in the kitchen of the little white cottage on the cliffs, concocting a delicious lunch for him. Once she had prepared the lunch, she packed it into a special basket and clipped it on a wire and ran it from the little white cottage to the lighthouse on the rocks. Now, what do we know so far? So this time I have given phrases. So let me give them to you now. Mrs. Grinlin would pack the lunch in a special basket. Once there was a lighthouse keeper called Mr. Grinlin. Each morning, Mrs. Grinlin would make lunch. Ships would toot him to tell him the light was shining brightly. So I've given you 4 phrases there. 4 phrases that we need to put into order. So let us talk through this together, sorry. So let's see. Once there was a lighthouse keeper called Mr. Grinlin. That must be our first one. Then, would next be Mrs. Grinlin would pack the lunch in a special basket? Or would it be each morning Mrs. Grinlin would make a lunch? Or would it be about the ships tooting him? That was it. Mr. Grinlin living in the lighthouse. I'll start again. Once there was a lighthouse keeper called Mr. Grinlin. Ships would toot him to tell him that his light was shining brightly. Then Mrs. Grinlin would make him lunch, and then she would pack it in a special basket. So we have those 4 in order, and I'm going to put them in order now for you. So I've labelled them 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you see how I've done that? This is what you're going to be doing in a little bit. Okay, we're going to do another one that's going to be together, and then you're going to have a go at doing one yourself. But one Monday, something terrible happened. Mrs. Grinlin had prepared a particularly appetising lunch, and she had made, can you remember, say it with me, a mixed seafood salad, a lighthouse sandwich, cold chicken garni, sausage and crisps, peach surprise, drinks and assorted fruits, and icy biscuits. And do you know what I'm noticing now? Hamish is popping up in all of these little pictures. Have you noticed that too? There he is sitting in the window. She put the lunch in the basket as usual and sent it down the wire. But the lunch did not arrive. It was spotted by 3 scavenging seagulls who set upon it and devoured it with great gusto. "Clear off, varmins!" shouted Mr. Grinlin, but the seagulls took not the slightest notice. "Oh, this is an excellent peach surprise, boys. She's a great cook, Fred. Scrumptious lunch, Tom. That evening, Mr. and Mrs. Grinling decided on a plan to baffle the seagulls. Tomorrow I shall tie a napkin to the basket, said Mrs. Grinling. Oh, of course, my dear, agreed Mr. Grinling. A sound plan. Oh, they'll have to try harder than this tomorrow, she said. On Tuesday evening, Mr. and Mrs. Grinling racked their brains for another plan. Those are a brazen lot, those seagulls, said Mr. Grinling. Brazen indeed. What shall we do? Oh, our cat does not appear to like seagulls. Now, I'm wondering if she got that a little bit wrong, because if we look at Hamish here, he's sitting there, crouched down, but he's not scaring the seagulls off, is he? He's kind of sitting back. I wonder if he's actually a bit frightened of seagulls. That's why he did not want to go in that basket at all. What do you think? Oh, of course, exclaimed Mrs. Grinling. Tomorrow Hamish can guard the lunch. A most ingenious plan, said Mr. Grinling. Hamish did not think that this plan was ingenious at all. I think because he doesn't like seagulls and he's scared of them. He spat and he hissed as Mrs. Grinling secured him in the basket. There, Hamish, said Mrs. Grinling consolingly. I'll have a tasty piece of herring waiting for you when you arrive home. But sadly, Flying did not agree with Hamish, and his fur stood on end when the basket swayed, and his whiskers drooped when he peered down at the wet blue sea, and he felt much too sick to even notice the seagulls, let alone scare them away from the lunch. Pretty kitty, like a piece of lobster mornay. Oh, this food gets better every day, Fred. Aren't you going to chase us, kitty? Oh, they're very mean, aren't they? So let's have a look here. You've got these on your sheet as well. So let's talk through them together, and then I want you to put a number, or you can cut them out and put them in the right order if you want to. It's up to you. Let me read you them. Mrs. Grinling puts Hamish in the basket. Hamish was very frightened. The seagulls stole Mr. Grinling's lunch. Mrs. Grinling made a delicious lunch. Which comes first? Which comes after that? I need you to pause the video, have a think. You might want to go back through the video just to check if you need to. But can you put these in order? So you can either number them 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can cut them and put them in the right order. Pause the video and do that now. Okay, let's see how you got on. So you've either cut them out or you've numbered them. Let's go. So number 1 was Mrs. Grinling made the delicious lunch. Number 2, the seagulls stole Mr. Grinling's lunch. And number 3, Mrs. Grinling put Hamish in the basket. And number 4, Hamish was very frightened. Did you get those? Fantastic. Do you know as well, children, if you have a look at your work from yesterday, that might help you as well. Okay. Lack a day, said Mr. Grinling sadly. Agreed Hamish pitifully. Now, in this picture over here, do you notice he's hiding underneath the curtain? Why do you think he's hiding there? I think he might be hiding because he doesn't want to go in the basket again. On Wednesday evening, Mr. and Mrs. Grinling racked their brains again for a new plan. What shall we do? Said Mr. Grinling. And Mrs. Grinling looked thoughtful. Oh, I have it! Just a mixture for hungry seagulls, she exclaimed. Oh, indeed, my dear. What do you have in mind? Oh, wait and see, said Mrs. Grinling. Just you wait and see. Mustard sandwiches, chuckled Mr. Grinling. A truly superb plan, my dear. Truly superb. Oh, now have a look at Hamish here. He looks really happy. It's because he knows he's not going in the basket. I think so. And because he knows the seagulls are about to get a really horrible surprise. On Thursday morning, Mrs. Grinling carefully packed the mustard sandwiches and sent them off down the wire to the expectant seagulls. On Friday, Mrs. Grinling repeated the mustard mixture. So on Saturday, up in the little white cottage, on the cliffs, a jubilant Mrs. Grinling put away the mustard pot before she prepared a scrumptious lunch for Mr. Grinling. While he waited for his lunch down at the Lighthouse Rocks, Mr. Grinling sang snatches of old sea shanties as he surveyed the coastline through his telescope. And this is what he saw. Oh, this is a delicious chocolate eclair, Fred. Oh, there's no mustard in this lot, Tom. We'll fly back again here for tomorrow's lunch, boys. Ah, well, such is life, mused Mr. Grinling as he sat down to enjoy a leisurely lunch in the warm sunshine. Now then, this is your turn. Here, I have put 4 phrases, and you have these on your worksheet. Again, you can either number them or cut them out and put them into order. But let me read them to you. Once again, Mrs. Grinling could make a delicious lunch for Mr. Grinling. Mrs. Grinling spotted the seagulls stealing the fisherman's lunch. The seagulls thought the mustard sandwiches were awful. Mrs. Grinling made mustard sandwiches. So your activity now is to have a go at putting those phrases into the correct order. You might need to use your work from yesterday to help you and see if you can read some of those words in those phrases. Enjoy doing that and good luck with it because you're doing a fabulous job. Have a super wonderful day, Year 1, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye.